Okay, hi. So this study is using seismic interferometry to locate hydrothermal tremor within the dense array at depth and to illuminate the geyser plumbing structure. The framework is a little bit similar to a few tremor talk we've been these weeks, but the methodology, the scale of the geyser is very different. It's much smaller in scale in the top 100 meter. I will start with the Old Faithful Geyser in Yellowstone. This is the iconic geyser in the national park. It is called Old Faithful because it's periodic, erupts every around 90 minutes. And this, the water column can be around 20 meters to 30 meters high. And this kind of the geyser system is originated from the interaction between the heat source, normally from magmatic system, interacting with the shallower groundwater system from the porous fracture medium. And that causes the eruption on the surface. Super dynamic two-phase flow system. There's a lot of bubble collapsing, bubble nuclearization during the recharge cycle. And here I show you in 2016 we went there for deploy another dense array. This is the geyser center. This is geyser cone. Geyser's cone is here. We had around 80 stations. Spacing is around 20 meters with 3-component sensor. And if we look at a seismogram for 1 day, we can capture around 15 eruption cycles. You can see the dashed line are the phase for eruption. It's super vibrant. A lot of seismic signals before the eruption is certainly shut off after the eruption. If we zoom into one eruption cycle, this is eruption time. This is all of the high-frequency bubbling event happening. This is the eruption phase. It lasts around 3 minutes for all faithful. This is super high frequency, could be over 100 hertz. And these are the individual events from this individual bubble collapse signal. This is 3 seconds, so each of the event is less than 1 second. This high-frequency signal has been observed and being used for location to infer the plumbing structure around 10 years ago. The data was collected in 1990s. They look at location of high-frequency tremor, and I see the tremor are located beneath the geyser vent. These are long conduit, narrow conduit, but at the side of that, 20 meters at the side, there's a bubble trap feature that also see some of the tremor location. So we know that there's a high frequency signal for the day. This is recorded by the station to the north of the vent, 20 meters away. And if we look at this station in a different location, if I filter to 1 to 5 hertz, so this is over 10 hertz. If I filter to a slightly lower frequency, I see similar, very unique pattern that also are related to the eruption time. Gets stronger and stronger, and suddenly gets quieter after the eruption. If you look at the scale, this is much weaker. This is 2 to 3 orders smaller than the high frequency event. And if you have a spectrogram, you are not able to notice anything in this frequency range with the normal color scale. So we see this very interesting. And if we try to look at this signal in the different stations, say this same station, filter to 1 to 5 hertz, there's almost nothing. They are only around 50 meters apart. They are not too far away. So these signals are super weak. There's no clear signal you can pick a rival. We don't know the velocity structure in the top 100 meters or so. And this area is super noisy. So that gives us a little bit difficulties to do the research for that, but we're super interested in this low frequency signal. And that's how we do that. This is not a scatter. This is a source from the bubbling event emitted from the at depth. This is a station. We record really good low frequency signal. We have an array, all the receivers, maybe their signal, but buried within the noise, right? So we do the cross-correlation between the vertical component of the virtual source station at the receiver station. We do 3-component cross-correlation, Z, Z, and Z. And so that we can extract the coherent signals between the really good signal from the closest station to all other stations. We preserve the relative amplitude at the receiver side so we can study the particle motion and maybe further polarization from the covariance matrix of the cross-correlation. And through eigen decomposition, we know we see this several times. And we can retrieve a dominant vector in the 3D space. That means we can try to use this information to study the polarization information out of that. So this is example for particle motion. One of the example for cross duration. Blue is vertical radial duration. Red is vertical and vertical duration. The virtual source is here, the superglue signal. One of the receiver, nearby receiver, we see linearized P wave motion. And you can see the particle motion looks like this. This is vertical, this is radial. The color I plotted here is the incidence angle. The red, the color means it's vertical incidence, just like this. And if we look at further and further receivers, we see the, I need to emphasize, so this is not the Green's function. We just try to extract the polarization out of the coherent wave field. And the further station, we observe that we see like elliptical radial wave motion. I also project in the more horizontal incidence here. And we have an array of data. So this is the powerful of the dense array. We can project the pseudo eigen decomposition. We have the dominant vector, so we can project the dominant duration of the polarization to in this map view. So you can see, infer that a lot of source coming from here, southwest of the off-faithful band. And if we have observed a lot of this P wave motion, we try to utilize this linear motion to do the back projection. Back projection is now we are looking at the cross section from M to A plumb here, M to M plumb. We have the receiver, we know the dominant vector in 3D, so we can back project where the source is located, and we have a rate of stations, so you can see how all the possible duration can be concentrated. I call it heat count here. The higher the heat count, is more likely the source is located at this location. We did this for every minute, so this is 5 minutes before eruption. It's around 20 meter steps. 5 minutes after eruption, it dropped to 70 meter steps and gradually migrate vertically back to shallower portion. So this will be the movie from 15 minutes before eruption to 15 minutes after eruption. Before it's roughly the same place. Right after eruption, drop to much deeper. You can see the vertical migration back to shallower portion. The location of this tremor also can tell us where are the plumbing structures at. So we are looking at the vertical migration from 20 meters off from the vent. From the deepest portion is 70 meter steps and gradually migrate to the top of it, the bubble trap feature that was imaged from the high frequency tremor. It also can see track the source depth as a function of time relative to eruption. This is eruption time. Before it is all within the bubble trap. Right after eruption, a lot of water got ejected, so there's a depressurization processes so that the deepest portion will immediately start to boil or a lot of bubble nucleates, and that causes very strong, very vibrant 1 to 5 hertz signal we are seeing. And there's a change in the slope here. This means that either the plumbing structure volume changes, the permeability between the rock matrix changes, or it could be the heat source changes. We don't know for sure, but here is illustrated in the plumbing structure changes here. The boundary here, we have a constraint from the nearby borehole, so this is corresponding to a stratigraphic boundary for this area. So I didn't look if there's any questions you yelled at me, that's fine. This is quite a simple system, so now I want to introduce Steamboat Geyser. The reason is that this Steamboat Geyser is the tallest geyser in the world. It's 2 to 3 times taller than off-phase, so it's a very powerful system in time and also in the space. A well-known hydrological connection to nearby spring. I say nearby is 100 meters apart. Before steamboat eruption, the spring is full. After the eruption, you don't see the water on the surface anymore. And the water will gradually refill back until the next eruption. And the pattern persisted for decades. And here is the steamboat. Here is the system spring. Here is the array that we put in 2018. Let's look at the seismic signal again. This is 1 month of data, so you can see the dashed lines are steamboat's eruption. The time scale is different from off-faithful. And if you look at the geyser signal and spring signal, they are all related to steamboat eruption, but the pattern itself is different. That means within this array, this is 200 meters to 300 meters aperture. There are multiple sources in the system. So we try to implement in a similar method and try to see if we can identify and locate multiple sources within the similar area. So now we start to look at the source station near geyser. This is the source station. Nearby receiver station, we see still similar CP wave motion. Further station, we see the transition to radio wave, that's fine. But in this case, you can see all of the sources are pointing to the geyser. That means, okay, that's something similar to phase what we've seen before. If we look at the source station put nearby the spring, we see nearby there's a P wave motion, and ZR is stronger, means it's more horizontal incidence. That's why it means source is shallower. But if you look at slightly further receiver from here and here, you see the waveform interference. You have the dominant arrival in the a-causal part. That means these signals are affected by Steamboat the geyser source. And in this case, you can see a subset of the receiver station pointing to the spring, but not all of that. It means there's a source here, but it's weaker. So this is done 11 hours before the eruption. Now, if I look at after eruption, 9 hours after eruption, the first you can notice, everything turns red. That means a lot of the station has more vertical incidence. That means drop to much deeper. If I put a source station here, you see maybe there's a source here. But for this case, there's a third source region. This looks wider distributed. And that means it's much more complicated than we thought for this system. And what we can do is that we take each of these the station we have as potential source station. We screen through every station pairs, and we have some sort of the steps, the criterion to select, firstly, detect the source using a subset of the station and to try to locate that in 3D. So I wouldn't go too much of detail. I don't know how much time I feel left. I didn't count it, sorry. 4 minutes, oh, awesome. So now I'm trying to play the similar movie, but now you're seeing the color is the source depth. The blue, the color is shallower, the red color will be deeper. And this is the geyser, this is the springs, 100 meters apart from 50 hours before the eruption to 100 hours after the eruption. How can I play it? Wait. Should I? Okay. So before the eruption, both are shallower beneath each of the feature. Right after eruption is super deeper, and you can see the migration back to beneath the spring. And for this one, is approximately vertical. If I try to just plot the iso surface of the potential source region, we can get this kind of the plot. The volume is not necessarily the real, this potential source region, but the relative change in the volume might be something more indicative for the geyser system and the dynamics. For the geyser, it's more like vertically, and for the spring, we see the narrower conduit, and laterally, because we see the lateral migration connected to a much larger volume down to 140 meters depth. And because we are wondering how they are connected, people think, oh, there might be the channel beneath that connected, they are 100 meters apart. But if we look at different view angles, at least there's no clear connection. There's no clear seismically active area within the connection that is like a channel for this kind of the case. And what we can do, why I feel I missed one slide. Wait a second. Oh no. Sorry. Oh, I missed this slide. Oh, that's fine. Okay, good. So what we can do further, we also can track source depth as a function of time. This is the date, so this is eruption. The red is Steamboat's the geyser source, the blue is cistern source, then right after eruption, before eruption is shallower, similar to phase 4, right after eruption drop to much deeper, 120 meters, 140 meters. But you might notice that they are never in the same level. It's always at the same time, always one is deeper, one is shallower. The migration time back to the shallow is also different. Here I mark the evolution. Geyser source depth, cistern source depth, the color is the time after eruption. In this case, that we are looking at where are the tremor source as a function of time within each of the plumbing system. this diagonal line means that they are at equal depth. So you'll see there's no tremor source along this equal depth at all. And that tells us that the two systems, they are connected, but they don't have like open channels for the fluid and the heat to transfer freely that can have the same, heat and pressure condition at the same time. Otherwise, they will show up in the same depth. And I think that's pretty much of it. Okay, so we only implemented the method because we want to study geyser, so we have not tried the method to any other system. But we find that through the cross-sectional seismic interferometry, we can isolate and track the underground seismic sources pretty efficiently for geyser system. Give us a lot of opportunities to study the plumbings, the dynamics. Dynamics is super interesting, this pattern. Or maybe the predictability of the geyser eruption. And maybe if there's a proper way, we can try to image more hydrothermal, geothermal reservoirs. And I'm looking for if there's more application that we can try to make improvement or try to look at for this kind of method. And that's it. Thank you.